Good morning, this is Shelby Law with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Friday, June 25th, 2021. Fire potential impacts for the next few days are shown here. For today, we're looking at another round of showers and thunderstorms over central eastern Utah and up into western Wyoming. Some of these thunderstorms may produce heavy amounts of precip once again today. On Saturday, some wind moves into southeast Idaho, and we'll see some isolated storms continuing over just the higher elevations of central and eastern Utah, and will end up into Wyoming. And then on Sunday, the story shifts a bit to some major heat coming in along the west coast that will bleed over into far western Nevada and far western Idaho beginning on Sunday and continuing through next week. And we'll also see some breezy winds over eastern Utah. Yesterday was a pretty active day for showers and thunderstorms. We had showers and thunderstorms over much of northern and southern Nevada, across much of Utah, except for a few areas down south were left out of the action, and then up north in eastern Idaho. Some of these storms did carry a fair amount of precipitation. A handful of stations over around half an inch, and a few stations coming in at 3/4 of an inch here in northeast Utah and northern Utah, and then quite a few 1/10 of an inch stations in these darker shades of blue. Fire activity is shown here, continuing to pick up. New initial attack. I'm sure initial attack will continue over the next couple of days with all this lightning that we had, especially as we dry out, especially over Nevada and western Utah. ERCs are decreasing, of course, especially over Utah and northern and northeast Utah, where the heaviest amounts of precipitation were observed. Those are back down to the 70th percentile or below. And then across southern Utah, those values are down, but are still above the 80th to 90th, as not nearly as much precipitation was observed down south. This morning's satellite imagery is showing some of that moisture still in place over central and eastern Utah and up into western Wyoming, where we'll expect to see another round of showers and thunderstorms again this afternoon. Some of those storms could move a little bit further south as well today over southern Utah. The bigger story is this high pressure beginning to build over the Pacific Northwest. It will continue to move inland and bring some very warm temperatures to the Pacific Northwest and the northern Great Basin by the weekend and into next week. So for this afternoon, we can see the bulk of the moisture is starting to move off to the north and east, but throughout the day today we still will see those showers and thunderstorms over the higher elevations of central and eastern Utah and up into western Wyoming. And then, of course, ridge in place over the Pacific Northwest getting closer. No high-risk triggers have been issued for today, and we do have some of our zones in Utah that are in the yellow due to the precipitation. Precip forecast for this afternoon, again, highlighting mostly northeast Utah and then possibly some showers a little bit further south. Relative humidities are up across the north and east, but still very low over southern Nevada. On Saturday, that ridge moves even closer, strengthening over the Pacific Northwest, bringing warmer temperatures to the north and west portions of the Great Basin. And we really dry out, seeing a significant decrease in our thunderstorm activity. And on the backside of that ridge, we'll see some increased winds over eastern Idaho, and we do have high-risk triggers issued for those winds. So for Saturday, just some lingering isolated thunderstorms over the higher elevations of Utah, dry elsewhere. And then again, those gustier winds over far eastern southeast Idaho. Some gusty winds may be possible over western Utah and eastern Utah, kind of on the backside of that ridge as well. Our images change a bit here for the remainder of the period, but on Sunday we can still see this 500 millibar heights and temperatures, very hot over the Pacific Northwest. Very high heights with that strong high pressure there. And we do have high-risk triggers issued on Sunday for that heat over western Nevada and far western Idaho. We also have some high-risk triggers issued over far eastern Utah for some wind, still fairly strong on that, out on the front side of the ridge. So for Sunday, gusty winds over the Uinta Basin. Still some gusty winds over far western Utah, but just below criteria there. And then the maximum temperatures is really going to become the story for the weekend. Very hot over western Nevada and western Idaho. Highs near 100 degrees by Sunday, and those will continue to move upward. You can kind of see over Washington and Oregon a high of 108, which is so far outside of climatology for the middle of June. It's going to definitely be a record up there. 3-day precip totals, again highlighting the precipitation we're expecting today and tomorrow, mostly today in Utah, lingering to some extent into tomorrow. On Monday, that ridge stays in place over the Pacific Northwest, keeping temperatures very high, especially over the central Idaho mountains and even into moving a little bit further eastward. On Monday, we'll also begin to see a little bit of moisture starting to return from the southwest to the southern Great Basin. Very isolated chance for thunderstorms on Monday across the far south. But we do have high-risk triggers issued for as a little bit of that moisture returns back in for some generally dry thunderstorms. And then high risk, again, issued for all that heat over Idaho and western Nevada. On Tuesday, more of the same with the ridge continuing to move a little bit further eastward, bringing even warmer temperatures to Idaho. And across the south, we'll see the moisture picking up over southern Nevada and southern Utah. Some of these storms may begin to produce a little bit of precipitation in Utah, but on the drier side across the leading edge. And so when we look at the high risk, the threat for dry thunderstorms moves into central Nevada, where the storms are further south may be a little bit wetter, and then continued high risk triggers for the heat north and in the west. On Wednesday, the ridge breaks down a little bit, not quite as strong, but still very hot everywhere, especially across the north. A lot of heat in place, and then increasing thunderstorm activity, or continuing thunderstorm activity across mainly the southern third of the Great Basin, but we may see some thunderstorm increasing further north. So high risk triggers for that heat, again in place over much of the northern 2/3 of the Great Basin. More of the same expected for Thursday, although we'll see some thunderstorm activity move all the way up, possibly into the central Idaho mountains. This could definitely be a problem following up that heat that's moving in for the first part of the week. So we'll be keeping an eye on any of that moisture that continues to move further northward by Thursday. And high risk for the heat continues into Thursday. 7-day totals for precip, mostly highlighting this precip in northern Utah is in the short term, and then starting next week, like in the Tuesday time frame, is when we'll see the precip across the south, and then later in the week, Wednesday, Thursday, that's when we'll see the precip maybe a little bit further north there in central Idaho. The extended forecast isn't looking too bad. We're seeing a better chance of some precipitation from the south as we head into the first week of July, the first full week here. The heat still staying mostly in place over the Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies. So we'll see if we continue to see these wetter storms moving up into the southern half of the Great Basin. This concludes today's fire potential briefing. Please check back tomorrow for the latest updates.